to another episode of the Left, Right, Left podcast with your handsome host out of Prince William County, Virginia, Mark R. Chabot, United States Marine Corps retired, aka the Silver Fox as my title down there. Got a hell of an episode for you before we turn to with my amazing guest tonight. Big shout out again to these guys over my left shoulder. That is Devil's Backbone Brewery. Thank you very much for being my sponsor. Truly appreciate you for taking good care of me and making a healthy donation. Before we get started, all proceeds from the podcast are donated to the Amphibious Tractor Memorial. So it costs you nothing to hit subscribe. If you happen to like what me and my guests are throwing down tonight, click likes, algorithms. Let's get the message out to everybody. And that is it for the housekeeping notes. We're done. My amazing guest over here on the other side is a 20-year United States Air Force veteran. She's also a resiliency coach, and she's an entrepreneur. She's doing amazing things. The reason why I have her on here is because of social media. So everybody who's poo-pooing on social media, sometimes it's just the way that you use it. We use it for positive means. I find her extremely genuine, authentic, and that's why I invited her to join me tonight to spread some good friggin' wealth and some good positivity to you guys. Without further ado, welcome my new friend, Miss Nat Martin.
Hello, everybody. Hello. Welcome, and thank you for having me on here. I am honored to be on this show.
Thank you so much, Nat. Thank you for spending some time with us tonight. Time is of the essence. You are a busy woman, so let's get right into it. Tell everybody a little bit about your background prior to the Air Force, please.
So, my background prior to me joining the United States Air Force is I'm a young lady from Newark, New Jersey. So, if anyone is from New Jersey, it's not a tourist stop, pretty much, especially Newark. It's not a tourist stop, but I grew up born and raised in Newark, New Jersey. And one of the cool things about my childhood is that a lot of people don't know is that I actually had an opportunity to be an exchange student. And sometimes people are like, well, what does that mean? When I was 13, I got to move from Newark, New Jersey and live in Manchester, Vermont. I was a part of DNI before DNI existed. So it was a public school in Manchester, Vermont. They had an exchange program for foreign international students. And I was there to be the diversity for African Americans. So I got to go at 13, live in a house full of people from all over the world. And we had like host parents. And then I got to live with my Spanish teacher. So it was kind of cool. And that's kind of what sparked me to want to like travel the world. And that's kind of what led me to deciding to go to the Air Force.
Might be sometimes a little bit of a tough call, right? Because the military obviously is a much lower female population. So, like, what besides traveling the world, was this something that kind of hooked you, where you said, "Man, I really want to go serve the country and be in the Air Force"?
Nope and nope. So
That's all right.
nope and nope. So the last year when I was up in Vermont, my grandfather had passed away. So I had wanted to come back home. So when I came back home, I went to the local high school in the area that we lived in, and the school was not up to par. So for me going through private schools and being the top of my class to go to this public school that I didn't even need anything but English and gym to graduate. Basically, when everyone was getting their college acceptance letters back, I was getting incomplete application. So I was like, what am I supposed to do? So I wasn't able to start college in the fall. So I'm like,
Yeah.
they never received my transcript. So I was like, I have to figure something out because I knew that life there was not what I wanted for myself. That's when I remembered an Air Force recruiter came to the school. And I was like, wait a minute. They said they'll pay for my school. So I
Mm.
went and I contacted a recruiter and I told him three things. I want to travel, I need to be able to take care of myself, and to pay for my education. So he was like, let's do it. And we did it. But then I said, wait a minute, I got to be 18. So I was
Mm.
17 when I graduated. So I was like, I got to be 18 before I can leave. Well, I was scheduled to leave, but unfortunately, 9/11 happened.
Mm.
And that was in my backyard because living in Newark, we're just right across the bridge to New York. And my basic training date got pushed back to November. So I didn't get to go to basic training until November 2001. But once that happened, everybody was like, "Are you afraid?" I didn't look at it as like a thing. I didn't even realize I was in the military until about 2 years in the military, to be honest, because my grandfather was Navy, even though I don't know, like, when he was in, but I grew up in a very structured environment. So for me, it was just like, long as I go do what I'm supposed to do, don't get in trouble. It's no matter where I went, whether it was Vermont to the Air Force, as long as I just do what I'm supposed to do, I'll be fine. So it didn't really, it took me about 2 years to adjust to the military.
Hmm. Okay. Hey, thank you everybody for the comments and for you guys that are tuned in live. Again, I got 20-year Air Force veteran, retired enlisted airman Nat Martin, resiliency coach, and she's going to talk to you a little bit about her life and about what she's doing today. Okay. So you ended up adjusting, obviously, because you spent 20 years in, retired as a master sergeant. There's a whole lot of stuff in between there. Not enough, obviously, to cover in our time period. However, I would like to ask you something that when females serve, indeed the minority for sure,
Hmm.
um, no matter what branch they're in. And I read a statistic today that 60 to 65% of females report some sort of inappropriate environment that they're exposed to, whether it's sexual harassment, sexual assault, unfortunately, rape, just all kinds of weird things that can happen to them. What was your experience like being, one of the few that serve?
Well, once you come in, especially in the Air Force, my first job, I was it was aerospace control and warning systems. They done changed the name 3 times, but battlefield command and control, I think, is where it's at right now. That is dominantly male industry.
Right,
So I believe at the time when I first came in, it was one female to every 5 or 6 men. So it wasn't even a lot of females in my career field. So
right,
then once you start, training and you're going through different things, I'm not seeing one, a lot of females, and then a lot of females that even look like me. So for the first couple of years, I was confused because I didn't see, like, when I came in, they had a name for me. They used to call me Chief Master Airman of the Universe. For those that don't know, Chief Master Sergeant is the E9. That's the highest rank you can get in enlisted. Well, Airman Martin came in as an E1 with no rank at all, but you couldn't tell her she wasn't in charge. So they used to call me Chief Master Airman of the Universe.
mm-hmm.
But when I was running around trying to tell everybody what to do, I kept saying, I'm going to be a Chief Master Sergeant. But I didn't see anyone that looked like me as a Chief Master Sergeant. I didn't see a Chief Master Sergeant look like me until I became an E5. And I was like, wow, like maybe this can happen. But in my time serving, I experienced a lot of different things. One of the things, by being around different environments, you start to accustom yourself to different type of language, talk. So they'll say like shop talk,
Yep,
and it's shop talk and we all do it. But sometimes there's always a one person that's just going to go right on that line, and they may either make a comment. There's been times where people done said different things to me where you have to prove yourself to them. So I had to learn, one, how to have thick skin, because if you report everything, they would say you're sensitive. And so a lot of times, being a woman serving in the military, one of the hard things for me is that, and even now after the military, is taking off the armor. We're programmed. I used to tell people I'm programmed to be okay, but not be okay.
yep,
So it's like I have to have thick skin, even if, I don't want to, because the environment of being in a male dominated industry for so long, that I don't want to be isolated. I don't want to have to report everything, because then it's like, okay, it's a team. We got to trust each other. We got to make sure, especially for the field of work that we're in. So it's like, okay, I had to learn, like, okay, that's not so bad. But certain times I'm like, no. And then,
yeah,
they became mad at me. But predominantly around different career fields, not just the ones that have more men than women, it's still a problem within military branches of all sorts because when I got to Iraq, I was deployed to Iraq in 2004. I went to Baghdad. When I was in Baghdad, I got there when my unit was already there. So I came in with relief and I was new to the unit. So I really didn't know that many people to begin with. But midway, we had to convoy and go take over Balad. So now we're going to a different area in Iraq. When we got to Balad Air Base, I remember having to go to a briefing. And I kept asking my guys, like, why don't you guys have to go to the briefing? Do you want to know what the briefing was for? For protecting me from getting raped.
Oh,
And I was like, what?
mm,
So then that's when my first time when I was like, I didn't think of a threat. But because things like that have happened, they had to create a briefing about it. The same thing with different trainings in the Air Force, bystander training. I'm not sure if they had bystander training in your branch, but we had to create a training for bystander training so that people understand if you see something, speak up,
yeah,
say something, because now we all can either minimize, because, it's not everybody. It's not all males. It's not, it's just, it's always one. I always tell you, it's always one.
yeah,
And again, I was a recruiter. And sometimes you could point them out as they come in, like, I don't think this one's going to make the cut.
yeah,
And so it's always one. And unfortunately, people do get, um, it's casualties of war, is what I call it. But
yeah,
now there
yeah,
are procedures in place for people to report it where they don't feel isolated or they don't feel like they're afraid to report, which thank God. But when I first joined, people did not want to say anything. They didn't want to report it because they didn't want to get in trouble.
yeah. Yeah, I talk about all the time. Like not just the Marines, but all the branches. You value fit for full duty and performance, and anything that sort of distracts from that can put you on a pedestal below other people when you're being evaluated, and that's never a good thing. But I think we're making some strides in it, which is good. But I
Yeah.
still think we got a ways to go, unfortunately, with it. And I'm glad that nothing just entirely like shattered your time in the military. Thank God,
Right.
because that's not the same story for every woman out there that serves. So, fellas, ladies, as you guys continue to serve out there, I got a lot of you on active duty that watch the channel. So please treat each other with dignity and respect. The conversation you'll have at the bonfire, with like-minded, people with a beer in your hand may not be the same one that you want to have, around all your peers as you're
Right.
wearing a uniform and in the workplace.
Yep. As long as we support each other. But I think so many things is shifting and changing. So it's like now I'm like, okay, you always have to grow through it. So like sometimes when I retired at 20 years, I literally was like, wow, 20 years and went by and it felt like forever at first, but then it like
Flash
snuck
in a
up on me.
pan
Yeah.
like that,
It snuck
gone.
up on me and I was like, oh man. But then when I started to think back about all the things that I had to either go through or overcome, or some of the things that now the standards they have now was because we had to go through it to say, hey, we want this to change. We want that to change. Or, hey, this is how this needs to work. And thank God they were open to receive those different inputs so that now those that serving, they can have a better force.
Yeah,
So,
hands down. So you were labeled, the chief master sergeant airman, as an E1, E2, E3 coming up through the ranks,
yes.
and you decided to punch as a master sergeant at 20 years. So let me ask you, why did you not press the gas and try to make chief master sergeant in the Air Force?
Well, it was not by choice.
Okay.
I was a recruiter. So my last duty station was right here in Atlanta. I was the MLS, which is the military liaison supervisor for the Atlanta Military Interest Processing Station. So that was my position for the last 8 years. So I was at MEPS. And if anybody ever did recruitment, I'm telling you right now, any military recruiter in all branches, they're going to probably be like, Lord, give her a drink ASAP or something, because typically a recruiting tour is 3 years. I was there for 8.5. And the reason is because when I was supposed to move, I had health challenges. So I ended up having a surgery, and then they tried to med board me, and then I fought the med board, which is a medical evaluation board. Is when they want to process you out for medical reasons.
Yeah.
So then I fought the medical board, but then in the mix of me actually getting ready to move, I had to have another surgery. So I went from having let's take it back. I went from being a natural bodybuilder who was a personal trainer, who loved this, found her newfound passion was fitness. I was in the gym 7 days a week. All my recruits, I was working out with them. Even with the Marines, I would make my delayed entry personnel work out with my Marine recruiters. So we like tag teamed everything. He taught me how to do pull ups really good because people would come to my station and be like, "Oh, you guys don't do pull ups." So we would make bets with them, and I would get up there in my blues, and I'm like, and because I'm a female, young guys, they're like,
Oh yeah.
I could do more than her. Okay, we'll do it. And so I get up there, and the Marines, they don't give out anything. So
No.
like,
Mm.
if you come to the Air Force table, oh, t-shirts, water bottles. Marines, you better get up there and do them pull-ups to get the t-shirt. So I had
Yeah.
to earn my t-shirt too. He made me earn my t-shirt too. So we kind of would tag team and recruit because he was looking for a particular type, and he needed, so if someone didn't qualify, or somebody I come across, we would just give each other people. So while I was here, I was doing all of that. But then I had a knee surgery, and that's where it went downhill. The
Yeah.
knee surgery, I was misdiagnosed. And when I was misdiagnosed, it caused secondary injuries. So I was supposed to be down for 2 weeks. I couldn't walk for 6 months. That's when the Air Force tried to do the medical evaluation board the first time. So I got cleared. I was like, okay, but I'm still having pain in my leg. Why do I have pain? So then they came back and said, oh, you need to have a hip surgery. So I was like, okay, here goes Superwoman. Well, let's knock that out before our PCS because I wanted to do it with my same doctor. Did the hip surgery, and that was 9 months out of work. So 9 months out of work, I ended up losing my assignment to move, and they tried to med board me again. And at that point, I want to say I was at 19, 18 or 19 year mark. So I was fighting like, no, I did
Yeah.
not come this far to come this far. So I was fighting hard to learn how to walk, run. I hit my cane. I had a pink cane. Um, because the doctor told me I would have a cane for the rest of my life. And
Wow.
that's when resiliency kicked in. I
Hmm.
said, no, I will see you in 3 months. And when he said, what are you about to do? I said, I will see you in 3 months. I put that cane up, and I remember calling my coach, and he's retired Air Force. And he said some choice words. They weren't really, he's old school. And he's like, is something wrong with your effing brain? And I was like, my brain? No, my leg and my hip. He said, exactly. Use it. And I was like, what? What are you talking about? Basically, get back to what you know. So I started walking. And as I started walking, it was from my walker to my cane. Then I got into a four-car pileup car accident, put me back on a walker to my cane. And then if you're out here in Atlanta, there's a mountain called Stone Mountain. And I started
Yeah.
climbing the mountain because I had to mentally challenge and stretch myself. Now I was terrified. I didn't know if I could do it or not. And I was like, Lord, if I roll down this hill, somebody better call somebody. But it was like I have to figure out how to do this and how to break through this barrier. So I did it, and I keep my cane to remind me, like, you weren't supposed to be walking without assistance device. So that's kind of where the resiliency stuck. And then once I got cleared, they gave me an assignment to Phoenix, and they wanted me to re-enlist for 4 more years. I'm like, this body is not going to do it. So at the time, I still couldn't run. So when I declined the retainability, they dropped and said, well, you're at your 20. You can retire in 4 months.
Hey man, we all have a different story. Our
Yeah.
time in the military, and yours is not unusual, except for the point of you just kept on having these setbacks, unfortunately.
Right.
And I'm certainly not speaking for you, but to do what you're doing now, it really makes a lot of sense that you had these injuries. You got a coach in your ear. We call them mentors, probably the same thing, I would assume.
Right. Hmm.
Uh, and they're talking to you, and you're just like, get back to what you know, which is grind, hard work, go get after it, let the mind overpower the body, doing all this stuff. And you decide to not go into the workforce, and you immediately start, as soon as you're out, doing entrepreneurship,
Yes.
right? Would you tell the audience a little bit about how you started that journey, and kind of just unpack it as we go?
So I've always used social media. So even when I was on active duty, I was always, again, I would drive to work and sing in the car. So I call it my car karaoke. So I would just sing on the way to MEPS and on my way home, and I would just go live and just talk to people online. Then I had a segment called Talk with Nat, and I would go live on Facebook once a week with a topic, and people would send me topics, and we'd just talk about current events, and I'll have a message, and I was helping people. Then I always had a business while I was in. So at the time, I had a fitness business. I had fitness apparel. I was writing meal plans, but when I got injured, I had to shut it down. So
Yeah.
once I shut it down, I'm like, man, it was depressing me on I love helping people. So I was like, I can't walk. Oh my goodness. And then an opportunity came my way where I started a credit business because I was already doing it. So I guess every business I had, it was something I was already doing, and then it became a business. So in the Air Force, we actually run credit checks for applicants to join. And I was noticing a lot of my applicants, their credit was messed up, and they were only between 18 to 24. They had no idea.
Unusual.
Yes. So I'm like, okay, come in my office on Saturday. You give me authorization to talk to them, because once I get them set up on a payment plan, then I can do a waiver. And so my boss used to say, you do the most waivers, because I feel like everybody should have a second chance,
Yeah.
especially for something that they had no part in. So I would help them set up. So once I found this company, I'm like, oh, I don't have to do the work. Like, you guys would do it for them. I'm like, perfect. So I started the credit company, and I did that all the way up until I had the hip surgery. So it was just until that hip surgery and that 9 months down where I had to just focus and on myself. And as I focused on myself, I got certified in speaking and coaching, because I was
Nice.
home for 9 months. It's like, what can you do? I have to still stimulate my mind. So when I did that, I didn't realize I was coaching people through social media. I learned how to walk on TikTok because my son will show me these videos, and I would try to do the dances so I don't think about the pain. Then every day I was doing motivational messages, and this was a therapy tool that my therapist used for me, because I was dealing with chronic pain every day, and I threw away all of their medicine. I was doing it naturally because I'm holistic. I was like, okay, I have to fight through this. So every day I would get online and do a message, but the message was really to me. It was me talking to me, but it was just like, hey, if anybody else needs this, come along. So that's where the business aspect kind of started, and it was like, talk with Nat, because I'm over here trying to learn how to walk, and if you need somebody to talk to, just go ahead and book the call. You can always talk to me. And so people started reaching out, and that's where the business kind of started. And then once I retired, I was like, well, I know that I don't want to go into a job,
Hmm.
and that would be weird. I've been running my own, hours and running my own team for so long. I don't even know how that would look. So I just went full in. I just went all in to just all in for myself, investing in myself.
Awesome. So Nat obviously is active on social media. She's got a Facebook page. It's the same name that you see down there in her tile, and it's at I am Nat Martin on Instagram. She has a very large following over there, and she just, I just, like I said in the beginning, your attitude, your positivity, your helpfulness, and just you're one of the good souls out there that I do know that in your heart that you just indeed are very passionate about
Yeah.
helping others reach their potential. So with that, you have a certain message that you promote to people who either book calls for you or they just want to interact with you and just talk to you. So like that message of the whole superpower thing. Go ahead.
Yes. So I go around and tell people that I am Nat Martin. I am your real life superhero. I go around the world activating your superpower because resiliency is your superpower. So, one of the things I help with is I help you navigate obstacles to activate your purpose to transform your life. And I really believe that that can happen in any body. It doesn't matter male, female, young, old, it does not matter. And I literally have been since retired in the last 2 years. I've been to, I want to say 11 countries. Went to 11 countries. Most of the countries that I've been to, I've always include humanitarian work. So last year, I was able to go to Africa, which really touched my heart. The year before, I was able to go to Cuba and work with a community center over there. So there's a lot of things that I would like to do, but I need some more superheroes to come with me so that we can activate other people's superpowers.
Yeah, no doubt. I was following that journey. Yeah, I get jealous of stuff like that because I'm locked in. I'm locked in here. Doing the normal American stuff. But it's really cool that you're out there. Spreading your wings and and get fulfilling. That satisfaction, that purpose. That you have, and that passion that you have for spreading. Your word all over the world.
Mhm.
That's amazing. I did want to throw a pitch to you about your podcast. Loyal subscriber right here. Nat's almost at 1,000 subscribers on a YouTube channel. I watch her content. She just, again, the same person that you see on the other side of the towel from me, the same person that you see, on her YouTube channel, promoting, a good message out there. So go ahead and give everybody a pitch for your podcast.
So the podcast is Resilient Talks Podcast. What we do at Resilient Talks Podcast is real people, real conversations, and real resiliency. We're going to talk about how people overcome obstacles so that they can become the leader of themselves. Everyone has a story, and I believe that it's therapeutic to tell your story. And when you're telling your story, it heals you from you actually living through it. But I always tell people this: one, I met a lot of people, and the point of why I wanted to do the podcast was because people thought their story was not important. And I'm like, what? Your story is so important because you lived your life. Like, I retired from the Air Force, he retired from the Marine Corps. We are two retired veterans, but our story is totally different. We may have walked some similar paths, but you are important on telling your story because somebody, I believe that somebody's listening and they might hear something and they may say, "Oh man, that I'm going through that now, and that helped me." So I always tell people it's never about me. Like my time in the Air Force, honestly, one of the things about when I retired, the running joke is when I first came in at 18, my TI told me I would not make it. He told me she's gonna
Mm,
get put out. My first assignment, one of the senior NCOs told me I would not make it.
yeah,
Told me I
not
would
gonna
get put
make it.
out. Yeah, told me I'd get put out. Now, out of everybody that came in at that time, I'm one of the ones that did make it. And when I went to Iraq, I did not want to stay in the Air Force. I was supposed to do 4 years and get out. And I made sure everybody knew that, right? But once my experience in Iraq, and I had a dear friend that I lost while I was there, he wanted to retire from the Air Force. I made my career about him because once I got back home and realized, that's when I realized, oh, I'm really in the military. Like this thing is real. And I was like, okay, he wanted to do something and he's not here. So I have to because it's not about me.
Yeah,
So everything that I do, like even when I retired, it was our retirement. I included him a part of my retirement ceremony
that's
because
awesome.
I'm one of those people where a lot of people would think I need all the glitz and glam. I just need a coconut, some beach, and some water, and a hammock, and I'm good.
A straw
Um,
too.
yeah, give me a good little waterfall, some nature trails. I'm really that girl,
Yeah,
but I do things that's very intentional so that people are appreciated
sure.
for their values. So that's why I'm launching the podcast, is to make sure that his story is out there, that my story is out there, that any veteran or any person that feels like I'm just here, you're here for a purpose, you're here for a reason, and I want you to tell your story so that it can help someone else that's feeling hopeless or defeated, that yes, they got through it and so can you.
You and I have more similarities than I think we'll ever know. I mean, almost verbatim, like your pitch for your podcast is almost like verbatim mine. But good on you, for continuing, to be that person, to carry the torch, and do those
Mhm.
things. Because one, it's time consuming, and a lot of times you don't get a lot of return on your investment for it. But my return on investment is that it makes, not only does it make the other person feel good, it actually is very satisfying to me to do that for somebody. Because if
Mhm.
there's one common trend amongst military retirees, it's we're so used to helping out so many people that's how I continue, to give back in
Mhm.
this capacity, so I enjoy it. Hey, thanks a lot, Chris, for your comment. I appreciate it very much. Nat, we're running on time here, and I want to make sure I get you on Liberty. But I did want to give you the opportunity to have some closing comments,
Mhm.
shout outs to to your son, your family, your friends. Please take a minute or two and go ahead and wrap us up here.
All right. Well, shout out to my family. My son is an amazing senior. He's graduating this year. So we're going down that road
That's
of
awesome.
adult life. um, and shout out to all my family and friends that actually support me, because I always tell people I didn't make it this far by myself. We're not self made, I'm God made, and I had people that poured into me along the way. So if you are somebody that um, is listening, just pat yourself on the back for how far you come, and then go thank those that have poured into you, because for a minute I don't think I've done that enough. So I try to make sure I give people flowers or thanks and gratitude, as I go through the process of just keep doing whatever I'm doing. So thank you to everybody that has supported Nat Martin, because without you guys I would not be who I am. So thank you. And what else? Uh, Make sure you guys all follow me on all social media platforms. It's I am Nat Martin on every platform. Any platform you could think of, I'm on it.
Yeah, you'll be thankful that you did, and to close out the evening, you kind of invoked some memories earlier when you talked about losing your comrade in Iraq and stuff. I've spent a lot of time on the phone the last couple of days with Indeed, a guy who's lost a lot of guys, unfortunately, in combat. And I think the thing that I might have reached him a little bit is this thing right here: is that we need to live a life that's worthy of their sacrifice. End of discussion, because he or she would not want you to suffer, because they are not here no more, and damn sure their gold star families do not want you to live that way, and keep on defeating yourself and not progressing and moving forward in your own life. So sure, you're gonna have some bad days. Yes, it's hard, but I promise you that's the way that I live every damn
Right.
day. I'm trying to make them proud. So I totally agree with you on that one, Nat.
Yes.
You
And keeping their stories alive.
Yeah, absolutely. Keep and sorry, and share their stories. Correct.
Hmm.
Share their stories. Share those intimate details that can help others. And indeed heal yourself, like you said.
Right.
It. This has been awesome. I wish we could have covered 40 plus years of every part of your journey, but I think we hit the main points here in our 35 minutes of time together. You inspire me. You inspire others, and I want you to keep on taking that not on the Atlanta highways and pressing the gas real hard, but in your life, keep on getting after it and keep on leveling up and achieving your dreams. You have an ally in me anytime that you ever need it, anything that you would ever need, any questions to help you, technical, anything, I'm here for you. And it's been my honor, to meet you in person, virtually, finally.
Yes.
Yeah. All right, we're going to shut it down for the evening, everybody. Thanks for all the comments. Thank you, everybody who tuned in live. We'll publish some links out there on Nat's social media and on my social media so you can get caught back up in case you missed it. But I love you guys, and thank you all for all your support, and I appreciate you listening to Nat tonight and listening to me. Take care now. Have a good night.